At my son's grave, surrounded by my 3 grieving grandchildren, my daughter-in-law whispered a dream I'd never fully understood, one that's now a ghost drifting between us. It hit me hard, that fleeting moment, when the wind rustled through the oak trees and carried the weight of unfulfilled hopes. My son Jake's laughter was supposed to echo through these grounds, not his children's sobs. I looked down at the tiny faces of my grandchildren, their wide innocent eyes brimming with confusion and sorrow, each clutching a memento, a worn-out baseball, a crayon drawing, and a favorite toy that seemed almost too heavy to hold. Emily, their mother and my daughter-in-law, stood beside me, her voice barely a whisper as she spoke about Jake's hopes for their future, a life full of possibility. Once, she'd been the heart of our family, but now she seemed so distant, as if mourning alone in the eyes of the community that once embraced her. I could feel the chatter behind closed doors, the whispers about her being a single mom now, and the judgment that came with it. It tore me apart. I longed to comfort her, to wrap her in my arms and let her know she wasn't alone. But my role as a father now felt tangled and heavy. As we stood there, a hush settled around us, broken only by the rustling leaves and the soft cries of my grandchildren. I felt an ache deep in my chest, not just for Jake, but for the growing divide between Emily and me. How could I help? I was supposed to be her support, their grandfather, trying to fill a void I could never really touch. In the days following our visit to the grave, I threw myself into my work at the garage fixing cars, pouring my heart into each tool I picked up. It was a temporary distraction, but it wouldn't fill the holes we all felt. With every car I mended, I tried to mend pieces of my family too. But what could I say to quell the worries that gathered around Emily and the kids like a storm cloud? The routine seemed oppressive until that day the community announced a scholarship in Jake's memory, a chance for his dreams to live on. It brought a flicker of hope, igniting my heart. We could honor him, gather the townsfolk together for a fundraiser. But as we planned, doubts snaked into my mind. Would Emily even want my help? Would she see me as a lifeline or just another reminder of her husband's absence? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just when I thought the fundraiser could spark a new beginning, an unexpected crisis loomed. In the flurry of people and voices, old resentments bubbled to the surface. I had to confront not just the exterior judgments of our small town but my own insecurities about my role as a father to my grandchildren and as a support to Emily. Would we rise above the pain or let it tear us apart? As I stood in the midst of my own internal chaos, the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the community center where we had gathered to plan the fundraiser. The chatter buzzed, but I felt distant, like I was watching the scene unfold through a foggy glass. Emily was at the front, her hands animated as she spoke about the scholarship. But every fervent word seemed to pull her further away from me. "Grandpa." A tiny voice snapped me back. It was Max, my oldest grandson, tugging at my sleeve. His wide eyes searched for a connection. "Can we draw a picture to help? Like a big one?" I knelt beside him, forcing a smile. "That's a great idea, buddy. What do you want to draw?" His excitement filled the air. "A big baseball. With Dad's name on it." My heart ached. It had been one of Jake's loves, something the two shared often. As the kids began scribbling on paper, I stole glances at Emily, her brow furrowed in concentration. When the room fell silent, I felt a sudden urgency to reach out. This was no longer about the fundraiser, it was about us. I had to break through the wall that had slowly formed between us. "Emily," I began softly, stepping up next to her. She looked up, surprise flickering in her eyes. I could see the tension there, coiling in her shoulders. "Can we talk? What's there to say?" She replied, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her voice. "We're doing what we can. I rubbed the back of my neck, unsure how to voice the swirling thoughts inside me. I want to help you. Help the kids. I know I'm not Jake, but I'm still here, Emily. I'm still your family. Her gaze dropped, frustration and sorrow battling in her expression. Sometimes it feels like you don't know how to be here for me, Dad. For us. You're just here. Her words felt like arrows, sharp and piercing. I'm trying. But it's hard. I don't want to remind you of what you've lost, I admitted, my voice thick with emotion. Suddenly the room felt too small. The children were coloring, lost in their own world, while we stood on opposite shores of grief. But I could see at the flicker in her eyes that hinted at the vulnerability beneath her armor. I need to know you're ready to face this with me, I said, my heart pounding. This isn't just about the scholarship. It's about helping each other heal. I wish I could take away your pain, but I can't do this alone. A long silence stretched between us. Then, without warning, she took a shaky breath. I don't know, Dad. I want to try, but I'm just so tired. The admission hung in the air, heavy and poignant. I could feel the weight of our shared grief pulling us down, but also the glimmer of something hopeful and opening, a chance to unite again as family rather than drift apart. Then let us be tired together, I offered. We carry each other instead of collapsing beneath it. A flash of something warm sparkled in her eyes, and for a moment, I believed we could navigate this together, but as we stood together at that crossroads, a familiar figure entered the room, throwing a shadow over our fragile moment. It was Kevin, Jake's old friend, and I could already see the judgment etched on his face. Would he bring up old wounds? Or could his presence perhaps ignite the confrontation we all desperately needed? What would happen next, as pasts and presents collided in that moment, pushing us towards an uncertain future? As Kevin stepped into the room, his presence felt almost magnetic. Everyone noticed, several heads turning in a slow wave. It was like a ripple of unease, a shared recognition of the past that hung in the air like smoke. I could see Emily's face shadow over, her expression shifting from a moment of fragile hope back to guardedness. Hey, Kevin said, his voice breaking the silence. This looks like quite a gathering. His eyes scanned the fewer kids, a disingenuous warmth wrapped around an edge of discomfort. Yeah, I replied, my words measured. We're trying to organize the fundraiser for the scholarship. He nodded slowly, then glanced at Emily. Good to see you're still pushing forward. You too, she replied, her tone icy. What brings you here, Kevin? Before he could answer, a little voice piped up from the corner. Max had completed his drawing of the baseball, scrawling Jake's name across it with pride. Look, Grandpa. Can we hang it up? Max's innocent enthusiasm did its best to cut through the tension, momentarily diverting attention. Of course, buddy, I said, glancing at Kevin, gauging his reaction. Nice drawing, Kevin said, feigning interest. Your dad would have loved it. The words hung heavy, the reminder of our shared grief snaking its way back into the forefront. Emily clenched her jaw, a muscle ticking in her cheek. Let us focus on the kids, shall we? I asked. They're the ones we really need to support. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us all. Kevin crossed his arms tightly, and I could see him processing. You really think that's all it takes? A fundraiser and some drawings? You have to face the reality, Emily. It's not enough. The words felt like punches thrown carelessly, instantly creating a sharp divide in the room. Emily's face flushed with anger. What do you know about it, Kevin? You left after the funeral. Because I didn't want to be a reminder of what you lost. He shot back. Well, you two pretend like everything's fine, it isn't. You need to acknowledge the pain. I felt my heart race at the escalating conflict. This confrontation was like a simmering pot that had finally boiled over. Max pulled at my sleeve, confused by the sudden shift in tone. I knelt down to him, shielding him slightly from the mounting tension between the adults. Let us take a break from this, okay? Why don't you take your drawing and go show it to the others? Max eagerly darted away, blissfully ignorant while the tide of emotion threatened to drown everything else. Emily turned to face me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You've been so distant too, Dad. Maybe we need to hear these hard truths." "But Kevin, he's just bringing up everything we're trying to forget." "We can't forget," I said softly, my voice steady. "But we can learn to live with it. Together." Before she could respond, Kevin stepped closer, his voice lower now, but fierce. "Or you can keep denying it. You think this grief just goes away? You have 3 kids counting on you," he said, looking pointedly at Emily. Panic overtook me. "Kevin, that's enough." But I didn't know how to protect Emily from the truth, and the room was standing on the edge of despair. Then something shifted within Emily. "Maybe I'm tired of pretending," she shouted, and I could sense a shift, a breaking point. "Maybe I do need to face it." Kevin remained quiet, as if my daughter's words had finally landed. What would come of this unearthing the confrontation? Did it mean we would finally start to heal, or would it tear more wounds open? And as the room thickened with an unspoken agreement, Emily turned to me, her expression raw. "I need your help. But I can't promise it'll come easy." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "Just promise me you won't do it alone." But the question loomed, would we step into that darkness together, or flounder in it alone? "I need you to promise me something," Emily said, her voice trembling. Each word hung in the air, weighted with urgency. "What?" I asked, drawn into her seriousness. "Promise me that no matter how hard it gets, we'll face the truth together. No backing down." Her blue eyes looked fiercely determined, resembling her mother's when she was a child. A breath stuck in my throat. Did I have the strength for this? Just accepting the truth felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, staring down into a void. But as I looked at her, holding on to that spark of courage, I nodded. "I promise." The atmosphere shifted again, crackling with an unspoken commitment. But beneath that, I felt an inescapable weight, the fear of what exploring this grief would uncover. I glanced over at Kevin, still standing uncomfortably to the side like a storm cloud, watching. "Maybe we can start here," I suggested, motioning toward the table littered with Max's drawings. "Let us share what we're feeling. The good, the bad, the memories." Emily bit her lip, taking a deep breath as if preparing to plunge into icy waters. "All right," she said, "I can do that." Kevin shifted his stance, looking increasingly out of place as the conversation began shifting away from conflict to sharing. "I don't know if I'm the best person to then just listen," Emily said, her tone softening like the winter frost melting into spring. "I had a dream about him last week," she continued, glancing down at her clasped hands. "He was laughing, you know. It felt so real." "That sounds nice," I said, fighting the lump forming in my throat. "What do you think it meant?" Emily shrugged, the mask she wore beginning to crack. "I don't know. Maybe that he wants me to be okay. But when I wake up, it's just emptiness." Feeling the weight of her words, I reached out, gently placing my hand on hers. "He wouldn't want you to feel that way. He would want you to find joy again. To let Max and the twins know that laughter can still be part of your life." Silence enveloped the room, but instead of heavy, it felt safe. Kevin broke the stillness. "You know, Jake always had this crazy enthusiasm for the little things," he shared, his voice catching. "That one summer, he insisted on building a treehouse and it was such a disaster, but he wouldn't give up." Emily smiled despite herself, the memory shining through the pain. "Right. And then we spent the whole afternoon fixing it. Every nail was a challenge," I added, wanting to join in. "But it was the laughter that built it back up, not the structure." A wave of shared laughter washed over us, that simple joy cracking the ice layer of grief. It felt good, even if only for a moment, to remember those flashes of life unfiltered, genuine. But just as easily, the tone shifted, the shadow of loss re-entering the room. "What if it's not that easy?" Kevin asked suddenly. "You can't just patch up grief with memories. Maybe not, I said. But recognizing that laughter exists alongside our pain? That's the first step. Emily turned to Kevin, her face a mix of sadness and resolve. It's part of the process, Kevin. You might not understand that. I left because I didn't know how to help, he admitted, voice cracking. I thought if I wasn't around, it would hurt less. That's not how it works, Emily countered softly, her expression softening. It hurt more. An unexpected silence followed, like time paused for a shared breath. It felt like a moment of clarity, but it also invited questions into the open. Was reopening this wound the key to healing or just another avenue for deeper cuts? As I looked at my daughter, I realized we were on the precipice of something. What if we shared our best memories of Jake with the kids? I suggested, hoping the idea could bridge our painful conversation into a more constructive one. Maybe, Emily said slowly, her brow furrowing in contemplation. But what if they want to know the bad memories too? Then we share those too, I said, feeling strength in my conviction. Only together can we find out what lies in the light and what lurks in the shadows. And just like that, a collective breath was taken. Could we really forge a path forward, balancing on the tightrope of grief while holding on to those shards of joy? I guess we'll find out, she whispered, her gaze steady on mine. But as uncertainty loomed, I felt the undeniable pull of another question. Were we ready to lay bare our burdens, welcoming pain into our lives, in hopes of discovering healing? I can't believe we're doing this, Emily said, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. We stood in front of the small wooden table in the backyard, completely transformed with color from the nearby blooming flowers. For weeks, this space had leaned heavily under the weight of sorrow. Now, it trembled with potential. I know it feels daunting, I replied, stirring up some courage in my voice. But sharing memories can pave the way for something meaningful. We owe it to ourselves and the kids. Do they really want to hear it all? She asked, biting her lip nervously. They were all around, sitting on the grass with their crayons and paper. Max and the twins were busy drawing, blissfully unaware of the struggle just a few feet away. But then Ashley, the youngest, looked up. Can we play a game, Mommy? That's a great idea, Ash, I said quickly. Why don't we turn this into a group story? Everyone can add their favorite memory of Jake. How does that sound? Emily's eyes sparkled with a reluctant flicker of hope. Yeah, okay. I guess we can start there. I took a deep breath and called out to the children. Hey, guys. We're going to tell some stories about Uncle Jake today. Who's in? The twins perked up immediately, dropping their crayons in the grass. Us. They shouted in unison. I couldn't help but smile at their enthusiasm as they came bounding over, feet patting on the ground like little birds. Emily and I exchanged a glance. Looks like we're committed now, she said softly, the corners of her mouth lifting slightly. As the kids gathered around, the energy shifted from heavy to light, curiosity sort of spilling into the air. I cleared my throat, and the first few words tumbled out. All right, I'll start. One summer at the lake, Jake caught the biggest fish. It was far too big for him to handle, but he tried to show it off anyway. I remember he was flopping around like the fish himself, and we all laughed so hard we thought we'd faint. Emily leaned in to catch the kids' attention. Uncle Jake was very brave, she added. He once tried to climb a tree to rescue a kitten and ended up stuck halfway. The laughter bubbled up, warming the space. Max grinned. Do you think he's out there still stuck? What if he is? That would definitely be his style, I chuckled, feeling the atmosphere brightening. The twins began sharing their favorite moments too, recounting encounters that spurred more laughter. I watched Emily as she listened, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. Maybe we were doing the right thing. Then Ashley spoke up, her young voice cutting through the lightheartedness. But what about when I was sad? Emily's gaze softened. We can talk about the tough times too, honey. It's important. Yeah, I said, feeling hope swirl in my chest. Sometimes being sad is part of loving someone. And sharing those feelings can help us remember them better. Can we talk about when he left? Max asked slowly, his face serious. A hush fell over us, and I felt the familiar weight returning. Emily blinked rapidly, her expression torn. That's a tough memory, but it matters too, doesn't it? Just then, the wind rustled through the trees, bringing a hint of warmth that felt like a promise. I couldn't shake the thought that this conversation could bring us closer or tear us apart. Could sharing these raw truths lead to healing, or were we simply walking into the storm? The kids watched us, innocent and expectant, their eyes wide with questions. Maybe we should talk about it, I suggested tentatively. Emily nodded slowly, her face a mix of resolve and vulnerability. Yes, let us. We owe it to them. Her voice quivered as she braced herself for the emotional plunge. Would facing that wound together truly lead us into brighter days? As I looked at my daughter and my grandchildren, I felt a stirring of hope intertwined with fear. Could we handle this next leap into shared pain? With a deep breath, Emily began to speak, her words unraveling in the soft afternoon light as we ventured further into the unknown. I can't believe we're actually doing this, Emily whispered, her voice barely above a sigh as she steadied her breath. The breeze fluttered through the trees, capturing bits of our conversation and carrying them away, as if the air itself was trying to shield us from the weight of the task ahead. That I felt the tension settle on my shoulders, heavy like a thick blanket. But as I looked around at Max, the twins, and Ashley, their curious faces painted with anticipation, I also felt a flicker of determination igniting within me. All right, let us focus, I said, channeling every ounce of courage into my words. Max, you had something you wanted to say. He rubbed the back of his neck, his bright eyes searching our faces for comfort. I was thinking about Uncle Jake the day he taught me how to ride my bike. My heart swelled. Jake had always had a talent for sparking joy in everything he did. I remember that. Emily chimed in. You kept falling over, but you didn't quit. He would just laugh and say that falling was part of learning. And then he took me to get ice cream, even though I kept scraping my knees. Max laughed, and his smile pushed back the shadows that clung to the moment. For a second, everything felt lighter. It was as if Jake was there with us, the laughter swirling around and settling gently in our hearts. But then I saw the twins exchange glances, their faces tightening. What about the scary stuff? One of them asked, confusion etched in her brow. Emily took a deep breath, ready to bridge the laughter with the weight of our grief. That's the hard part, isn't it? Jake's gone, and sometimes it hurts so much. But we loved him so much too, right? I miss him, Ashley said softly, her voice barely a whisper, pulling at my heartstrings. I knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, wishing I had all the answers to ease her pain. I know, sweetheart, I replied, my voice thick with emotion. Me too. But talking about our memories, good and bad, helps us remember how much we cared. What was it like when he? Max asked, his eyes filled with a mixture of confusion and a courage only children possess when facing the hardest truths. I glanced at Emily, who looked back at me, eyes wide and uncertain. There was a moment, heavy and thick, where we seemed to communicate silently. We'll get there, I said gently, wanting to soothe the bubbling questions without shutting them down. We need to remember all of Uncle Jake. Let us share what we loved about him first, and then we can talk about those feelings. Emily nodded carefully, her resolve lending strength to my words. The twins burst into their memories next, sharing anecdotes of Jake's silly games, each story spurring more laughter and lightness. At one point, I even found myself chuckling at the image of Jake dancing like no one was watching, his goofy moves igniting giggles from each of them. But in the quiet spaces, the air felt heavy again, and the longing crept in like shadows stretching across an evening sky. And when he left, Ashley whispered again, fear palpable in her tiny voice. I didn't want him to go. All of us felt that way, I said softly. It's okay to feel confused, to grieve in our own ways. That love isn't just vanished, it stays with us, and that's why we talk about it. Emily took a deep breath, her eyes glistening. And that love makes us stronger. Sometimes it hurts so much we don't know what to do, but remember, we have each other. The kids looked around, drawing comfort from one another. The ground felt a little firmer beneath us, as if we could stand stronger together, through pain and laughter. Just as I opened my mouth to say something else, the wind swept through, playfully lifting Ashley's hair. "Can we go visit Uncle Jake's favorite spot next?" she asked, her face lighting up with hope. "Of course we can," I replied, smiling despite the bittersweetness of it all. Emily took my hand, and together, we led the children towards the back gate, ready to take another step in our journey of remembrance. But as we walked, the nagging question lingered: would we find solace in those memories, or would they unravel us all over again? As we passed the lush green trees, I glanced back at Emily, who seemed lost in thought. How deep did this healing truly go, and what were we about to uncover as we ventured into that shared past? "Secret about your father," Emily murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. The way she spoke made something shift in the air, as if we were all suddenly holding our breaths. It was a moment suspended in time, teetering between the pain of loss and the hope of discovery. The twins glanced at one another, eyebrows raised and curiosity evident on their young faces. "What secret?" they chorused, leaning in closer as if trying to catch every word. Max stood a few steps back, arms crossed as he processed the challenge ahead of us. "Is it about Uncle Jake? Something we've never heard?" His eyes sparkled with both anxiety and excitement. Emily looked around, gauging the weight of her words. "Well, when Uncle Jake was your age, he had a different name." A ripple of confusion splashed across their faces, and I could feel my heart racing. What was she getting at? "What do you mean?" Ashley squeaked, her tone a mix of amazement and confusion. Emily took a step closer, her expression serious yet kind. "You see, Uncle Jake, he always wanted to be brave. When he was little, he thought he'd be happier if he could just be someone else. He'd pretend to be a superhero or a flying dragon." Max's face lit up. "But didn't he know he already was a hero to us?" A soft smile broke through Emily's somber demeanor. "Exactly. But he felt like he needed to find a way to be someone greater. He shared his feelings with me during one of our long talks, and he told me how he often felt trapped by everyone's expectations." The wind seemed to carry Emily's words, wrapping them around us like a comforting blanket. I watched the kids process this new layer of their uncle's life. The secret wasn't just about a name, it was a glimpse into Jake's heart, revealing the struggles he faced. "So he was just like us?" Ashley whispered, her voice trembling with understanding. "Yes, sweetheart," Emily replied softly. "He felt scared and lost sometimes, just like we do. But the difference was he chose to rise above it. He laughed and danced, pretending to be someone he wasn't to help fit in. It didn't mean he wasn't brave, he was. It just reminded him how special he really was after all." The three kids stood in thoughtful silence, absorbing this new perspective about their beloved uncle. "But if he changed his name, why do we still call him Jake?" one of the twins asked, glancing around. A lingering pause filled the space around us as Emily took a deep breath. "Because at some point, he learned to embrace who he really was. He realized being himself was the bravest thing he could ever do. And that's what made him a role model." Her words tattooed themselves on my heart. It pierced through the grief, allowing a soothing light to seep in. Just then, the twins broke into excited chatter about superheroes, immediately finding the spark that Jake had ignited within them. I felt a warmth bloom in my chest, seeing the way his spirit was still present in their conversations, yet, beneath the laughter lingered a question that kept me grounded. What else could Jake have revealed? What more about him still waited to be unearthed? As we walked towards Uncle Jake's favorite spot, I could sense another shift in the wind, whispering promises of revelation. Just up ahead, a patch of sunlight peered through the trees, illuminating a space where memories intertwine with truths yet to be uncovered. Would we discover more about who Jake was that could bring us even closer together? The anticipation grew, woven delicately with the love we all still shared. The journey felt vast, yet within reach, and I squeezed Emily's hand, sharing her electric excitement. But as we reached the clearing, a feeling of unease crept in. What if what lay ahead was more than we were prepared for? Different story, Emily said, her voice trembling ever so slightly. She turned to face the clearing, where a wooden bench stood beneath the sprawling branches of an old oak tree. It had been a place of laughter for Jake, shared secrets, and a sanctuary for the dreams he dared to voice. The mood around us shifted as we approached that sacred spot. I could see the memories flooding back to Emily, each step weighing heavier with the potential for deeper revelations. The twins' energy faded, replaced by a palpable tension in the air. What else did she know? What had she held back until now? As they settled on the bench, I caught a glimpse of Ashley's face, etched with confusion as she processed the gravity of our journey. Max followed her gaze, while Emily's eyes sparkled with untold stories, the sun casting a warm glow on her features. Jake, he also had an old diary, Emily began. It was filled with his thoughts, wild adventures, and his fears. Her voice was steady, slowly revealing the layers of Jake we hadn't yet uncovered. In it, he wrote down not just the fun things, but also what he felt as a boy who desperately wanted to feel loved and accepted. He wanted to be brave for everyone, especially for you three. The world around us faded into a gentle hush as the weight of her words settled in. My heart raced while the twins shifted closer to Emily, their expressions eager yet solemn. They hung on to every syllable as if they were uncovering buried treasure. What else did he write? Max asked, his wide eyes betraying both curiosity and a hint of fear. Did he ever say he didn't want to be Jake? Emily seemed to retreat back into her thoughts, gathering her words carefully. In a way, yes, he did feel that way sometimes. But it was more about being seen, being understood. He fought with shadows of doubt about not being enough, just like we all do. Ashley tucked her hair behind her ear, her small hands clenching the fabric of her shirt. But we love him just the way he is. He doesn't have to pretend. Exactly, Emily replied, a proud glint in her eye. And because he took that journey, he became a light for others. He learned that his strength lay in his authenticity, in showing up as the real him, no masks needed. As I listened, a wave of gratitude washed over me. Emily was bringing Jake back to life, not just to ourselves but also to his children. It was in moments like this that I felt the connection between the past and our present surge with new energy. But she hesitated, her tone shifting to something more serious. There's something else you need to know. In that diary, Jake also wrote about a man. A silent gasp escaped the twins as they locked eyes, the implications of that statement hanging in the air like a storm cloud. What kind of man? Max's question was laced with confusion. The kind that made him question everything. You see, he was searching for not just a sort of bravery, but for love. A different kind of love, something that weighed heavily on his heart. Each word was a stone dropped into a pond, sending ripples of emotion throughout our gathering. My chest tightened, realizing that Jake had fought battles we'd never seen, that the journey we once thought was only about loss and longing had so many more dimensions. What had this man meant to Jake? How deep did those questions go? I felt a tug in my chest, a manifestation of curiosity mixed with dread. As Emily wrapped up her thoughts, I glanced at the clearing, now a place bubbling with the potential of discovery. We need to find that diary, I said, feeling an urgency I've never experienced before, but as we turned to head back, I couldn't shake the feeling that more secrets still awaited us. Would the next piece of Jake's story lead us toward more shadows, or bring the light we were all yearning for? Secret, Emily continued, her voice steady yet delicate. A secret that had been kept so long that it felt like a weight on all of us. Jake had hidden parts of himself, and those parts are crucial not just for understanding him, but for finding closure. Her eyes flickered across the clearing, and for a moment, we all seemed to swallow the tension in the air as if it was a heavy fog enveloping us. It was not just Jake's story, it was our own, a story of love, loss, and deeper truths lurking beneath the surface. What do you mean, hidden parts? Ashley asked, her voice small but resolute. She was always the brave one, even when uncertainty painted the world around us. Emily shifted a bit on the bench, her fingers brushing against the worn wood. Jake struggled with things that perhaps he never felt ready to share. There was more to that man he wrote about. He wasn't just a fleeting thought, but someone who made Jake who he wanted to be, complicated and beautiful, all at once. The twins leaned in further, their expressions filled with wonder and concern. Each passing second felt like we were inching closer to a truth that we couldn't easily bear. My heart raced louder, echoing in the silence between us. Is that why he felt like he was never enough? Max whispered, his voice trembling as he sought clarity in the heavy air. Emily nodded somberly. Exactly. Jake had this amazing ability to be brave for everyone while battling his own insecurities. In his writing, he revealed a longing for acceptance not just from outsiders, but from those he loved most. I felt a pang as the reality of it struck me. How often had I taken for granted the depth of emotions swirling within him? The many conversations we shared, the shared laughter, and perhaps, the silence where understanding could have bridged the gap between us. Ashley's eyes darkened, and I noticed she was biting her lip to keep from tearing up. Did he ever say what he wanted from that man? Any clues? That's the hardest part, Emily replied, her gaze drifting as if she were lost in a different time. Jake wrote about wanting love that felt unconditional, a love that went beyond friendship, even family. He wanted to explore his identity without judgment. But he feared he'd be misunderstood, so he hid it. The twins exchanged glances, and for a heartbeat, I felt as if reality had shifted. The idea of Jake struggling alone in the shadows was a hard pill to swallow. But if he wanted that, why didn't he just tell us? Max implored, frustration creeping into his tone. Emily hesitated, chewing on her next words. He was afraid. Fear is powerful, especially when it's wedged between expectations and reality. I think he wanted to protect you three from his own battles. A new emotion bloomed in the pit of my stomach. Anger? No, not quite. More like a blend of sadness and urgency. There was so much left unsaid, and the conversation had drawn us in deeper, but without answers, we would remain entangled in confusion. Where do we even begin to heal from this? Ashley asked quietly, her voice quaking with the enormity of it all. We start by finding that diary, I murmured, overwhelmed by the path ahead. We have to know what Jake really wanted, how he saw himself, and for us to truly embrace him for who he was. Emily's eyes gleamed, a fire igniting in her spirit. Collectively, we owe it to him. Every discovery can be a step toward understanding, toward healing. As we stood to leave the clearing, the sun dipped towards the horizon, casting long shadows on our way back. With every step, I felt the weight of what we had yet to uncover pressing on my heart, but then, a thought struck me like a lightning bolt. The diary wasn't just a collection of words, it was a glimpse into Jake's soul. What other surprises lay hidden within those pages? Were they filled with hope, dreams, or burdens that would transform our understanding forever? As the shadows deepened, I couldn't shake off the feeling that the next chapter of Jake's life and ours was even more layered and complex than I could ever imagined. What awaited us? If we dared to pry further? The sun was setting as we gathered once more beneath the sprawling oak, its branches wrapping around us like an embrace. We sat there, the fading light painting our faces with warmth, but I could feel the underlying current of anxiety in the air. It was time to begin following the whispers of Jake's hidden life, to unlock the diary that held pieces of him we had both longed for and feared. Emily took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders as if preparing for a dive into deep water. Jake wanted to be free, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor of emotion underpinning it. He wanted the world to see him as he truly was. The conviction in her tone sparked a kind of unity in all of us, the promise of connection drawing us closer together. We're ready to listen, I said softly, meeting her gaze. Whatever you need us to hear, we'll face it together. The kids nodded, their small faces showing a blend of innocence and determination. Ashley's brow furrowed with thought. But what if we find something we don't want to know? I leaned closer, brushing the hair back from her brow. That's a part of it, honey. But Jake's story isn't just his, it's also ours. I glanced at Max and the twins, who were all huddled together, encouraging each other with glances, their small hands intertwining like the hopes we carried for our family. Emily continued, preparing for this will be hard, but we owe it to Jake. Let's do it not just for him, but for us, for healing, for understanding. The twins giggled at how brave they were being, a contrast to the intense moments we shared. Their laughter sparked something in me too, reminding me that love had a way of creeping into even the heaviest of narratives. Let us honor him today, I prompted. We'll commit to exploring his memories, both the joy and the pain. And we'll find that diary. With the shadows stretching long around us, we made our way inside. A sense of anticipation hung thickly in the air as we navigated toward Jake's old room. Each step was a march toward revelations, and my heart beat a synchronizing rhythm with the lives we held dear. Inside, the walls were adorned with snapshots of laughter and joy. It felt sacred, a place untainted by sorrow. The kids wandered through the room, each item guiding them back through years filled with love and memories, but we had a mission. We needed to find that diary, a compass for navigating this storm of emotions. After some time sifting through remnants of the past, Emily reached up to the top shelf of the closet. I think I remember him putting it here, she said, the strain in her voice thickening as she tiptoed. Suddenly, her hand grasped something at the back of the shelf. We all leaned in as she pulled out a weathered leather-bound journal, the cover smudged and soft, as if it had been a favorite companion. Holding it delicately in her hands, she looked at the kids, who darted toward her, eyes wide with curiosity. This is Jake's heart. Are we all ready to open it together? A collective nod assured her. She carefully opened the diary, its pages fluttering softly like wings in a breeze, revealing Jake's thoughts, fears, and dreams. As Emily began reading aloud, a quiet enveloped us. The first entries spoke of Hope's dreams of taking his family to the lake, building treehouses, and teaching them how to ride bikes. But as we turned the pages, the tone shifted. We entered a world of self-doubt and confusion. I need to be brave enough to be myself, Jake had written. But it hurts, being who I am feels like a battle. With each sentence, we felt the weight of his burden. The desire for acceptance clashed with the fear of rejection. The power of his vulnerability hung in the air, an invisible thread connecting us to his spirit. Tears filled Emily's eyes, and I saw our children's expressions morph into understanding, hearts opening as it became clear Jake was not alone in his struggles. His words were a map, leading us forward, through the pain and into the light. Jake wanted to teach us to be brave, Emily said, her voice choked with emotion. Not just for ourselves but for everyone around us. Max piped up, he said that everyone should be themselves. Even if it's hard. Yes. Emily exclaimed, her countenance transforming. That's exactly right, Max. He wanted me to tell you how proud he was of each of you just for being yourselves. The energy shifted, from loss to triumph, from sadness to hope. In this room, surrounded by Jake's spirit, we began to find our courage. We learned to embrace both our memories of the laughter and confront the truths of his struggles. As Emily closed the diary, we gathered into a circle, the warmth of our family wrapping around us like a sturdy quilt. Let us promise to keep Jake's spirit alive by sharing our own stories, by being brave in our own ways, I suggested, and my heart soared as Max raised a tiny fist in agreement. With the sun setting outside, painting the sky vibrant hues of oranges and purples, we made our pledge to honor Jake's legacy and stand together as a family, woven with the threads of all emotions, the rainbow of our shared existence. In that moment, I felt uncertainty transform into clarity and hope. We would carry his memory not just as a burden but rather as a light illuminating our paths forward, guiding us through the darkness. As we stood together, hands held in solidarity, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just an end but a new beginning. And we were ready to embrace whatever came next. Now more than ever, let us not linger in sorrow. Let us keep moving ahead, uplifted by our love and memories, and as we took that next breath together, the call echoed louder than ever. Jake was with us, roaring with joy at having his story heard. Now, as this story inspires you, remember, you need to subscribe now to catch the next chapters of life, love, and resilience. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to fuel the journey we're sharing. Comment below your feelings about this journey of healing and connection. And don't wait not even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this transformation too. Together, we can carry these stories beyond today.